The leather of Marco Moretti's chair was still warm at 11:34 p.m. Maya Bennett knew she shouldn't be sitting in it. Shouldn't be behind his massive mahogany desk with her maid's apron discarded on the floor like shed skin. Shouldn't have her bare feet tucked beneath her as she read through the open file folder marked, Calabrese Investigation. Confidential. But for the first time in 8 months she wasn't being invisible. The study was dark except for the amber glow of the desk lamp. And the leather smelled like him. Expensive cologne cut with something darker, more dangerous. Her fingers traced the photographs clipped to the file. Surveillance shots, arrest records, court documents. Evidence of the case that had destroyed her life. Evidence that Marco Moretti had clearly been tracking for years. He knows, she thought, her analytical mind already working through the implications. He's always known. The realization should have terrified her. Should have sent her running. But instead, Maya felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in 8 months of scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins. She felt alive. She didn't hear him enter. Didn't hear his footsteps on the Persian rug. She felt it. That electric shift in the air that meant she wasn't alone anymore. Marco Moretti stood in the doorway of his study, his dark suit jacket discarded, his white shirt sleeves rolled to reveal the intricate tattoos that wound up his forearms. His slicked back hair caught the lamplight, and his eyes, those dark, penetrating eyes, were fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. He didn't look angry. He looked satisfied, like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Agent Bennett," he said quietly, his Italian accent wrapping around her old title like a caress. "I was wondering how long it would take you to stop pretending." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. After 8 months of making herself invisible, of becoming no one, being seen by Marco Moretti felt dangerously good. Like standing at the edge of a cliff and wanting to jump. She should apologize. Should stand up. Put on her apron. Retreat back into the safety of invisibility. Instead, she met his gaze steadily and said, "How long have you known?" Marco's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. He stepped into the study, closing the door behind him with a soft click that seemed to seal them both inside a moment that would change everything. "From the moment you walked into my estate 8 months ago, tesoro," he said, moving toward the desk with the controlled grace of a predator. "Did you really think a woman with your training could completely erase herself? I saw you. I've always seen you." He stopped at the edge of the desk, looking down at her in his chair, surrounded by evidence of her past. The power dynamic should have made her feel small, vulnerable, exposed. But it didn't. For the first time in 8 months, Maya Bennett felt like herself again. And the way Marco Moretti was looking at her, like she was something rare and dangerous and worth claiming, made her realize that maybe invisibility had never been about safety. Maybe it had been about fear. "Close the file," Marco said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "And come here." Marco circled the desk slowly, his movements deliberate, predatory. Maya stayed in his chair, refusing to give ground even as her pulse hammered in her throat. He picked up the Calabrese file, his fingers tracing the edge of a photograph. 3 agents in FBI windbreakers outside a warehouse in Newark. All dead within 48 hours of this photo being taken. "Agent Sarah Chun," he said quietly, tapping the first face. 34. Engaged. Shot twice in the back of the head. He moved to the next. "Agent Marcus Webb. 41. 3 kids. Thrown from a parking garage." His finger settled on the last face. "Agent David Rodriguez. 28. Your partner." They made him watch while they dismantled everything he loved before they finally let him die. Maya's jaw clenched. "You don't get to." "I'm not judging you," Marco interrupted, his voice soft but unyielding. "I'm establishing that I know exactly who you are, Maya Bennett. I know you went deep into the Calabrese organization. I know your intelligence took down a $50 million operation. I know your cover was burned by someone inside your own agency. And I know there's still a $2 million bounty on your head from 3 different families." He set the file down, leaning against the desk so close she could smell the whiskey on his breath mixed with that dark cologne. "I also know you've been scrubbing my floors for 8 months when you could be using that brilliant mind to actually survive this world instead of just hiding in it." Maya's throat felt tight. "What are you offering?" $300,000 a year. "You work for me as my intelligence analyst. You help me navigate the politics, identify threats, protect what's mine. His dark eyes held hers. You're wasted on your knees with a mop, tesoro. I want you on your feet, using that mind that terrifies men like the Calabreses. And if I say no? Marco's smile was dangerous. Then you can go back to being invisible. But we both know you're already tired of hiding. Alessandro Russo slammed his hand on the conference table hard enough to make the water glasses jump. You want to bring a Fed into our inner circle? Say pazzo, Marco. Maya stood against the wall of the war room, her former maid's uniform replaced by simple black pants and a white blouse, but she still felt like an intruder. Marco sat at the head of the table, his expression carved from stone, while his second-in-command paced like a caged animal. She's a liability, Alessandro spat. She could be wearing a wire right now. Then search her, Marco said calmly. Though I've already had Luca's team sweep her 3 times. Alessandro's eyes cut to Maya with pure venom. I don't trust her. You don't have to. Marco's voice dropped to something cold and final. I do. The silence that followed was knife-sharp. Finally, Marco slid a folder across the table toward Maya. We have a problem. A shipment was intercepted last night, 2 million in pharmaceuticals. I need to know if it was law enforcement or a rival family. You have 24 hours. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she opened the folder. The familiar rush of analysis tried to push through 8 months of dormancy, but her mind felt rusty slow. Photographs of the warehouse, manifests, personnel logs. She'd done this 1,000 times before, but now the stakes felt different. Personal. She spent 18 hours in that conference room drinking cold espresso and building timelines. Her hands shook every time she touched a document. But slowly the patterns emerged. A supposedly loyal soldier, Enzo Vitali, had tipped off his cousin's family. When she laid out her findings at hour 23, Marco's expression shifted. Something like respect flickered in those dark eyes. Impressive, he murmured. Alessandro said nothing, but his jaw was tight. Maya had just proven her worth. And crossed a line she could never uncross. The warehouse by the docks smelled like salt water and rust and something darker Maya couldn't name. She stood behind Marco as he confronted Enzo Vitali, her heart a drum against her ribs. This wasn't an FBI raid with rules and Miranda rights. This was Marco's world, swift, brutal, absolute. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Marco's voice was silk over razors. Enzo was tied to a chair, his face already bloodied. Marco, please, I can explain. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Maya flinched as Enzo's scream echoed off concrete walls. Marco had shot him in the knee, his expression never changing. The next one goes in your skull, Marco said calmly. Tell me everything. By the time it was over, Maya was shaking. She managed to hold herself together until they reached the parking lot. Then she bent over and vomited onto the asphalt, her whole body convulsing. The sound of Enzo's final wet gasp wouldn't leave her mind. She expected Marco to be disgusted, expected him to regret bringing her. Instead, he knelt beside her, pulling her hair back gently, his other hand steady on her shoulder. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm sorry, I should be stronger. No. His voice was firm. Don't apologize for this. He waited until she could breathe again, then sat beside her on the curb of that blood-stained parking lot. I was 19 the first time I watched my father kill someone. I threw up for an hour afterward. He lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the darkness. The day it stops affecting you is the day you've lost your humanity. Don't lose it, Maya. It's the only thing that makes us different from animals. She looked at him. This man who just executed someone without hesitation, and saw something unexpected in his eyes. Understanding. Shared darkness. We're going to be okay, he said quietly, and she realized he meant we, not just her. The office Marco gave her was on the 3rd floor of the estate, behind a door that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. When Maya stepped inside, her breath caught. 6 monitors lined one wall, all connected to encrypted feeds. A secure server hummed in the corner. The desk was sleek glass and chrome, and the leather chair was buttersoft. Welcome to your war room, Marco said from the doorway, watching her reaction. Over the next week she met the key players. First was Lorenzo, the consigliere, 65, silver-haired, eyes like chips of ice. He assessed Maya as if calculating exactly how much she was worth dead versus alive. "The moment you betray him," Lorenzo said quietly during their introduction, "you won't see me coming." The tech specialist Matteo was surprisingly young, 26 with tattoos and gauges in his ears. "So you're the Fed who took down the Calabreses," he said, grinning. "That was beautiful work. The way you traced their crypto transactions. Chef's kiss." He became her unlikely ally, teaching her the Moretti systems without judgment. Then there was Sofia, Marco's younger sister, 23, studying architecture, with her brother's dark eyes but softer edges. She found Maya in the war room late one night, brought her espresso and said simply, "He hasn't looked at anyone the way he looks at you since, well, ever." "It's not like that," Maya protested. Sophia's smile was knowing. "Keep telling yourself that." As days turned into weeks, Maya stopped feeling like an employee performing a role. The war room became hers. The estate became familiar. And Marco's presence, the way he'd lean over her shoulder to study a monitor, the way his hand would brush hers when passing files, became something she anticipated rather than feared. She was becoming part of something larger. Something dangerous. Something that felt dangerously like home. The intelligence came in fragments at first. Unusual activity at the ports. A pattern of intimidation targeting Moretti-protected businesses. Maya spent 3 days piecing it together until the picture became clear and chilling. The Volkov Bratva was making moves into Moretti territory. "It's not just business," Maya told Marco at 2 a.m. Both of them hunched over a map spread across her desk. "Look at the targets. They're personal. Your father's old restaurants, his social club, even the church where he's buried." Marco's jaw tightened. "My father killed Dmitry Volkov's brother 20 years ago. Then this is revenge dressed as expansion." Maya pulled up surveillance photos. "Viktor Volkov is here. He doesn't come to the US unless it's important. This is about destroying everything your father built, Marco. And you along with it." The air between them felt charged as they worked through the night, designing a counterintelligence operation. Maya's mind was fully alive now, spinning scenarios, calculating probabilities. She needed Marco to feed false information through specific channels, to let Victor think he was winning. "You're asking me to look weak," Marco said. "I'm asking you to trust me completely." Maya's eyes met his. "Can you do that?" His answer was reaching across the map, his hand covering hers. The touch sent electricity through her nerve endings. They stayed like that for a heartbeat too long, the war room suddenly feeling too small, too intimate. As days turned into weeks, Maya stopped feeling like an employee performing a role. The war room became hers. The estate became familiar. And Marco's presence, the way he'd lean over her shoulder to study a monitor, the way his hand would brush hers when passing files, became something she anticipated rather than feared. She was becoming part of something larger. Something dangerous. Something that felt dangerously like home. The intelligence came in fragments at first. Unusual activity at the ports. A pattern of intimidation targeting Moretti-protected businesses. Maya spent 3 days piecing it together until the picture became clear and chilling. The Volkov Bratva was making moves into Moretti territory. "It's not just business," Maya told Marco at 2 a.m. Both of them hunched over a map spread across her desk. "Look at the targets. They're personal. Your father's old restaurants, his social club, even the church where he's buried." Marco's jaw tightened. "My father killed Dmitry Volkov's brother 20 years ago. Then this is revenge dressed as expansion." Maya pulled up surveillance photos. "Viktor Volkov is here. He doesn't come to the US unless it's important. This is about destroying everything your father built, Marco. And you along with it." The air between them felt charged as they worked through the night, designing a counterintelligence operation. Maya's mind was fully alive now, spinning scenarios, calculating probabilities. She needed Marco to feed false information through specific channels, to let Victor think he was winning. "You're asking me to look weak," Marco said. "I'm asking you to trust me completely." Maya's eyes met his. "Can you do that?" His answer was reaching across the map, his hand covering hers. The touch sent electricity through her nerve endings. They stayed like that for a heartbeat too long, the war room suddenly feeling too small, too intimate. In the garden afterward, under stars struggling through city light pollution, Marco turned to her. You were magnificent tonight. You've always been magnificent. You just forgot. I didn't forget, Maya whispered. I was afraid remembering would kill me. It won't. His hand curved along her jaw, thumb tracing her cheekbone. Not while I'm here. When he kissed her, it tasted like wine and danger and something Maya hadn't let herself feel in years, hope. She kissed him back, her hands fisting in his jacket, pulling him closer. This wasn't just attraction. It was recognition. It was falling and being caught simultaneously. The intelligence came through Maya's secure channels at 3 a.m., and her blood turned to ice. Special agents Michael Reeves and Patricia Morgan, both on the FBI's Organized Crime Task Force, both dirty, both part of the team that had burned her operation, had made contact with Viktor Volkov. The exchange was simple and devastating. Marco's security protocols and business intelligence in exchange for Maya's exact location. She had two choices. Run and let Marco face the Volkovs blind, or stay and cross a line that would change her forever. Maya found Marco in his study, the file trembling in her hands. They're coming for both of us, she said, and laid out everything. Marco's expression was carved from granite as he read. When he looked up, his eyes held a question he didn't voice. What are you going to do? I'm staying, Maya said, her voice steadier than her hands. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. Something shifted in Marco's face. Relief, possession, pride all tangled together. Then we set a trap. They spent 72 hours planning. Maya would feed false intelligence about Marco's location through channels she knew Reeves monitored. Viktor would move on the information. And Maya would be there. Not as an analyst watching from safety, but as an active participant in what came next. You understand what this means? Marco asked the night before the operation. There's no going back from this, Maya. Not for you. She thought about Sarah Chan, Marcus Webb, David Rodriguez. Thought about 8 months of hiding. Thought about the woman she'd been and the woman she was becoming. I don't want to go back, she said. I want to go forward. With you. Marco pulled her close, his lips against her temple. Then let's finish this. The moral line she'd been walking blurred and dissolved. She was no longer the agent who'd taken an oath. She was something else entirely. The abandoned factory in Red Hook smelled like oil and decay. Maya's position was third floor, overwatch, communicating coordinates to Marco's team through her earpiece. Everything was going according to plan until Volkov's enforcer, a man built like a truck named Alexei, broke the pattern and headed directly for her location. Maya, get out now, Marco's voice crackled through her ear, sharp with panic she'd never heard from him. But it was too late. Alexei crashed through the door with 2 others, and Maya's training evaporated. She was back in the Calabrese warehouse watching David die, hearing Sarah's last scream. Her hands wouldn't move. Her breath wouldn't come. The PTSD slammed into her like a freight train, paralyzing her completely. Gunfire erupted somewhere below. Someone grabbed her arm and she couldn't scream, couldn't fight, could only disappear into the nightmare in her mind where everything was blood and failure and death. Then Marco was there. His gun firing in controlled bursts, bodies dropping. He killed Alexei with 2 shots, chest, head. Then he was pulling Maya into his arms, dragging her into a side room while gunfire echoed through the building like thunder. Maya, amore mio, look at me. His hands cupped her face, forcing her eyes to his. You're not there anymore. You're here. With me. I couldn't move, she gasped, hyperventilating. They died because I couldn't, because I missed. Stop. His voice was firm but gentle. Tell me what happened. All of it. Through shaking words, she told him about the details she'd missed in the Calabrese files. The shipment manifest that had seemed routine but was actually the key to everything. How David had gone in blind because of her failure. Marco listened, still holding her face, then said quietly, I was 19 when my father was killed. I'd given him bad information about a rival's movements because I was cocky, thought I knew better. He walked into an ambush because of me. His eyes held pain that mirrored hers. We carry our dead, Maya. But we don't let them bury us. She kissed him desperately, tasting salt, hers or his she couldn't tell. Don't leave me alone in the dark. Never, he promised. Never again. 6 months later, Maya stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marco's penthouse office, watching the city sprawl below like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. The woman reflected in the glass bore little resemblance to the maid who'd scrubbed floors or even the terrified analyst who'd frozen during a firefight. This woman wore power in the sharp lines of her suit, in the way she carried herself, in the respect and fear her name commanded. The Volkovs had retreated after Victor's death in Red Hook. Reeves and Morgan were both serving life sentences in federal prison, their corruption exposed through carefully leaked intelligence. Marco's empire had expanded, legitimate businesses now, protected by Maya's strategic brilliance and her ability to see threats before they materialized. She felt Marco's presence before his arms circled her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this? Choosing me?" Maya turned in his arms, studying the man who'd seen her when she'd been invisible, who'd given her back her purpose. She thought about the scared woman who'd hidden for 8 months, convinced she deserved obscurity as penance. "I regret that it took me so long to realize I was never meant to be invisible," she said, her hand tracing the tattoos on his neck. "I was meant to stand in the shadows and rule them." Marco's smile was pure possession and pride. "Then let's build an empire, Mia Regina. My queen." She kissed him as the city lights flickered on below. Millions of people who had no idea 2 people in this penthouse held threads that could unravel their worlds. Maya had stopped being invisible. She'd stopped being afraid. She'd become something far more dangerous. She'd become exactly who she was always meant to be. Seen, wanted, powerful, and finally whole.